Hi, my name is my chapter presentation for our professional development class is on chapter 12, Conflict and Negotiation, from our text, Professionalism, Skills for Workplace Success. We all know that conflict in the workplace can create a toxic work environment in which people no longer want to work together. If there is a workplace conflict, then it needs to be resolved with negotiation or compromise. There are many different types of conflict that are mentioned in this chapter, as well as different ways to negotiate through your issues the right way. Yes, there are right and wrong ways to deal with conflict in a workplace. I am going to outline this chapter based on the main sections listed in our chapter. They are conflict, resolving conflict management and negotiation, harassment, workplace bullies, know your rights, resolving a conflict at work, resolving a conflict under a union agreement, workplace violence, agree to disagree, and workplace do's and don'ts. The first section in this chapter is all about conflict. As defined in the text, conflict is a disagreement or tension between two or more parties, individuals, or groups. If not resolved, then the conflict or tension in the office will continue to build up upon each other and lead to other issues in the workplace. If possible, try to resolve the conflict on the same day that the issue has occurred. If you wait, then other issues could arise that could make situations worse. If you see that there is a conflict between you, make sure you are not making the assumption about the situation. Get the facts and think about how the issue can be resolved. Also, remember to be honest with yourself and others in your workplace. It is extremely important to create trust in a workplace when you are dealing with the same people on a daily basis. Lastly, think about the attitude that you have towards others. Are you coming across as friendly? Or are you coming across rude when you're having conversations with your coworkers? Also, don't assume they are frustrated or mad at you. They might just be having a rough day and don't feel like talking. The second section of this chapter covers resolving conflict. Several conflict management styles exist, including forcing, avoiding, accommodating, compromising, or collaborating. Depending on what your conflict is and the situation in your office will determine the best conflict management style to try and resolve the conflict. The most important common denominator in all of these conflict management skills is communication. You cannot resolve a conflict without talking about it and coming to an agreement. You can do this by forcing conflict and attempt to make the other party do things your way, by avoiding conflict when you do not want to deal with the conflict, so you ignore the offense, by accommodating the conflict, which allows the other party to have his or her way without the other party knowing there was a conflict. You can do this by compromising conflict, which occurs when both parties give up something of importance to arrive at a mutual agreement, a solution to the conflict, or by collaborating in the conflict, when both parties work together to arrive at a situation without having to give up something of value. After deciding how you're going to resolve the conflict, take the necessary steps to make sure both parties are happy with the outcome. If not, the situation and the conflict could arise again. Both sides can come to an agreement if both parties want to resolve an issue, agree on an objective, honestly communicate their case or situation, listen to the other side, work towards a common solution that is mutually beneficial. Communication is key. However, so is listening to the other person or persons that are involved in this conflict. They also have an opinion about what is going on and might have an idea about how to resolve the situation. You always want to have a conversation with the person or group of people that you are having conflict with first. You might be able to work through it on your own without having your supervisor or the human resource department involved. There might have been a miscommunication, or the other person might be oblivious about what is going on or what they have said. Again, communication is key when trying to resolve conflict. The third section of this chapter is about conflict management and negotiation. Follow these basic rules when dealing with a conflict. Whenever possible, resolve the conflict in person. Remain calm and unemotional. Be silent and listen. Try to view the disagreement from the other person's perspective. Explain your position and offer a solution. Come to a solution. You want to resolve a conflict in person because you might not be able to understand a person's tone over email or even read their facial expressions when speaking over the phone. Make sure you are calm when talking about the issue. Having an attitude or coming across as emotional could make the situation worse. It is also important to think about the way the other person is thinking or how they see the issue. And most importantly, communication and listening during the conversation. The fourth section of this chapter is about harassment. Harassment is defined as offensive, humiliating, or intimidating behavior. Harassment in the workplace can take on many different forms. Some of the forms of workplace harassment are sexual, quid pro quo, and hostile. Sexual harassment deals with any unwanted advances or comments. The example from the text for quid pro quo would be sleeping with your boss in order to get a raise. Hostile harassment would be any form of behavior that someone would find as offensive in the workplace. There are many different companies that require employees to attend seminars on workplace harassment prior to starting your first day of work. This prevents any form of harassment from happening in the workplace. No one wants to work in a place that they feel they are being harassed. The fifth section of this chapter is on workplace bullies. If there is someone in your office that is bullying you, this could be considered as harassment. It is important you do not do the same to the person who is bullying you in the workplace. It will only make the situation worse. In most cases, the bully is doing whatever they are doing to get you aggravated. Try to avoid giving them what they are wanting and ignore what is happening. Also, keep detailed documentation of the events and share the documentation with your human resources department. If you feel that your human resources department has not done all that they can do to resolve the situation, you can get outside assistance from a lawyer. The sixth section of this chapter covers knowing your rights. If you are indeed having issues with harassment or bullying, it is important to know what you can do about your situation. No one wants to work in a place that they feel they are not comfortable or somewhere that they feel they do not feel safe. If you are having an issue going on in the workplace, make sure to ask your human resources department what rights you have and what you can do to resolve the situation. Most workplaces have a manual that lists out the rights that you have in certain situations. If you are not sure about this, check with your human resources department to see what rights you have in your workplace. The seventh section in this chapter is about resolving conflict at work. In order to make sure the conflict is getting resolved, make sure you are taking the correct step in resolving the conflict. First, resolve the conflict directly. Second, inform your immediate supervisor of the issue and continue to document what is happening. Third, file a formal complaint with the Human Resources Department and provide them with all of the documentation along with the names of any witnesses to the issues that you are having. Lastly, seek assistance from an outside source. As mentioned earlier, if you feel like the issue is not being resolved after involving your Human Resources Department, go to an outside agency or private attorney for assistance on your issue. You will also need to provide them with your documentation, so make sure you keep a copy for yourself as well. The eighth section of this chapter describes resolving a conflict under a union agreement. A union is a third-party organization that protects the rights of employees. It represents an employee's interests to an employer. Not all companies have unions, but if you do belong to a union, then you can refer to your union contract for assistance in the conflict or issue. You can also turn to your shop steward for help. This is a coworker that knows about the specific details laid out in your union contract. If you have decided there is a conflict that needs to be resolved, you can file a grievance. A grievance is similar to a complaint. Along with the grievance, you will need documentation. Documentation is extremely important because once you file a complaint about a conflict, you need to be able to back up your story with facts, times, dates, witnesses, etc., to make sure your claims are creditable. Once you have filed a grievance, your shop steward can help you with the correct steps and procedures that need to happen next. The ninth section of this chapter discusses workplace violence. Violence in the workplace does not have to be physical. People in the workplace can also be verbally abused by a coworker, supervisor, or boss. This includes any degrading comments or other negative comments that you might hear on a regular basis. Physical violence is when anyone puts their hands on you or hurts you in any way. Physical abuse is easier to see, but that does not make it a more serious problem than verbal abuse. Both of these types of abuse are horrible and should never happen in the workplace. As with any other type of conflict in the office, you must document what is going on. If there is physical abuse, it is important to include pictures in your documentation, so that you will have this as evidence in the future. In some companies, there are employee assistance programs that will help you out at no cost to the person making the claim. This means that the person that is enduring the violence can get assistance that they need without having to pay for it. In some cases, there might be a need to get the police involved for physical abuse. Most workplaces also require a background check to make sure that the people that they hire do not have a violent or criminal past that could affect someone in the office. No one should feel unsafe in their workplace or walking to and from their car on the way into work. Make sure that your human resources department knows about any situation that occurs so it will not happen in the future. The 10th section of this chapter discusses agreeing to disagree. If you agree with a coworker, you are both on the same page and are thinking the same things. If you disagree with a coworker, then you do not agree about the topic or situation. There are occasional times that conflict is inevitable. When you are working with the same people every day, there will come a time that you will not agree on something. Everyone is extremely diverse, and not everyone thinks the same way about certain topics. You are going to have to continue working with these people every day, and it is important to learn how to forgive and forget. There will be times that this seems difficult. However, it will be key in the end. Once again, communication is key. You can communicate with the people that you work with about thoughts and ideas just like they can communicate with you. It is important to listen to both sides and possibly come to a compromise about the issue. A mature coworker is always willing to forgive and forget and not hold grudges. Most of the time, you're just having a disagreement that can be easily solved. But if the problem persists, you may need to get help. The 11th and last section of this chapter is about workplace do's and don'ts. The chart is shown as from the text. It tells you what you should and should not do in the workplace. Some of the items listed are common sense and others you might not have thought about before. In order to avoid conflict, it is important to follow these do's and don'ts in every workplace, no matter in the office, a job site, or just if you work in the same building as other people. It is a common courtesy to be nice, as most people that you are friendly to will be friendly back. However, if you are ever in a situation with conflict with you in your workplace, make sure that you document, communicate, and listen to the other person or persons involved so that the conflict can be resolved.